Okay guys, welcome back to this next lesson. Goal for this lesson is to show you how to assemble some parts together, and also to how to use color in the rendering settings to be able to distinguish those parts so they look realistic. So the first thing you'll need to do is you've got a couple of parts over here that you might want to put together. I'm just going to grab this 2x6 and then add a few pieces onto it. It's not actually a real kit, but I'm just going to use it as a demonstration. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create a new design if you haven't already done so. So to do that, we go File, New Design, and you'll see it open a new page here. Let's get rid of that other one. And it hasn't got a name yet, so then I'll go File, Save, and it's going to the correct folder, and then I'm just going to call this Assembly Demos. It's just demonstration purposes. You might call it, well, whatever the name of your kit is, or it might be a sub-assembly, I suppose. So click on Save, and that'll update in a few seconds. There it goes. And now what we need to do is we need to add some of these parts into this assembly so we can start to build. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this 2x6 flat because it's the largest piece. What I'd suggest you do when it comes to assembly is actually to get a copy of the assembly documents if you haven't already got them. I've got mine here somewhere. Look, where are they? In here. And I've got my project. Sorry, just bear with me for a second. There's my instructions. I'm doing the snow speeder. So it's a pretty good idea to actually start assembling parts just the way you've been assembling it when you actually made your kit. So you'd start with this 2x4 if you're doing the snow speeder, then you'd add this 2x6 on top. And at that point too, it's good to actually assign colors to the parts as you go, so that it actually builds it up in realism, I suppose. Alright, so back to Fusion. So let's bring a part in. So this 2x6 over here, I'm going to right click onto the 2x6 and I'm going to insert this into the current design. So it grabs that, it pops it in here, and the first thing you want to do with this first piece is actually fix it in space. So just accept all these settings here, don't change anything, click OK, and then you'll see the part has come in, but I want you to actually fix this in space. So select the part by left clicking on it, then right clicking, and the first option is called ground, and ground is another way of saying fix that spot in space, so then everything else will then be relative to it. So click on ground. That's great. Deselect just by clicking somewhere over here in space, and then I'm going to bring another part in to join onto there. So let's grab this 1x1 tool, right click, insert into current design, and we'll see that appear in a second. There it is there. Now at this point in time, it's good practice to use these arrows here on your part to actually bring the object in so it's kind of close to where you might want it to go in reality. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that I want that corner there of this 1x1 tool to line up with this corner over here. So what I'll do, I'll kind of bring it close so that when I put a joint on that in a second, it'll be really obvious. So that's just bringing it in. Once you've got it round about the right spot, remember you can rotate, you can do all sorts of things with different positions and heights by dragging different stuff, and get it roughly in the right spot, then click OK, and then we need to apply a joint between the new part and the original part. So come up here to the Assemble tab, and on the right hand side you've got joints, and you can see that it's already selected the first component as the first one there. The second component is this one, and as you hover over all the different aspects of this second part, it's actually trying to guess, well, which part on here do you want to line up with this corner here. So as you can see with my cursor, I'm just going to zoom in a bit. As my cursor moves along that edge, there's a halfway locating point. There's the end. Now it's interesting here, as I move my cursor in different positions, that's an end vertical locating point. But then I move my cursor again, there's an end horizontal locating point. So I'm going to select that one first, and then it's asking me for the second piece, or the second locating point. Now same thing here, there's a vertical locating point. I want that to turn into horizontal, and you'll see as I get to that point, it's actually giving me the horizontal, the corresponding, if you like, matching point for this one above it. So click onto that one, and then what happens is it moves the part down onto the grounded part, and you can at this point you can do flips and you can spin things around, but also the type of joint's important, a rigid joint. So if it's in the right spot, great. If you still need to move it, you can still fine adjust it here by moving it on the X, Y, and Z axes. You can even change the angle still if you wanted to at that point in time, but you'll notice it moves relative to the point that we actually made a joint. So I'll undo that last one. Oh, okay, I'll do that again. Joint, horizontal locating point, corresponding horizontal locating point, brings it down. I'm happy with that. I click OK. Alright, so that's good, and you continue to do that for all these other pieces that you would then build up your Lego model. But it's also handy to have different colors assigned to different objects. Now to do that, the easiest way is to use the rendering capabilities of Fusion 360. And to access that, you'll need to get out of this design mode, which is the current mode that we're in at the moment. Click on the arrow there and come down to the one that says render. And let's let that start up. I might just close this data panel here to give us a bit more space. And you can see now we've got a fairly different looking rendition of what's going on. Also, I can see that that joint icon is visible. Over here you see that you can actually turn things on and off. I'm just going to turn those joints off so I can't see it. Alright, so let's experiment a little bit with colors and how to apply colors and so on. So the first thing to do is to click onto the, we'll work from left to right here, exploring what all these buttons mean. Click on the appearance icon, and over here on the right hand side should be, if you're connected to the internet and provided there's no updates running, you should be able to access all these different materials. Now I'll scroll down the side there. Everything from fabric, glass, you name it, plastics and so on. So Lego being a plastic, I'm going to investigate what's in the plastic folder. So I just sort of clicked on that once, and then I'm going to scroll down. And there's different types of plastic. We've got ABS, acetyl, nylon, and so on. And then inside those plastics, there's also textured, translucent, transparent. If you go to translucent, you've then got some default colors which are pretty handy and pretty close to some of the Lego stuff that we already use. Now, probably the one that's most used, of course, is the white. You do realise that it does say matte, so what I might do is actually get out of that matte one and go to glossy, because not many pieces of Lego are actually matte, most of them are glossy. I'm going to grab the glossy white, and I'm going to drag it onto the piece that I want to make white. Now you see it only selects one piece at a time. I'll let it go, and the preview window has now changed it to being white. Now as you've added that to it, you'll notice up here it stores the material that you've applied to not just one but every single piece. It adds this material at the top here. So you could then grab this red one, I suppose, glossy red, and you could apply it to there, and you'll see it then stores it and shows it. Let's say though that you wanted to make a couple of versions of, say, grey. So I'm just going to grab this grey, I'm going to override the white, and you can see the white's still in there, but I've just overridden with grey. So I want this one to be a light grey and this one to be a dark grey. So what we want to do, we're going to create a library of colours up here, which we'll then use for all of the different parts in our kit. So what we can do, you can go right click on the colour. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to make a copy of this light grey, and then I'm going to make a new colour called dark grey. So I'm going to duplicate this existing grey, light grey, duplicate. And now I've made it over here. You can see it's got a number 1 beside it at the very end. I'm going to right click and I'm going to edit this material. First thing I'm going to do is change its name, so get rid of the one off the end there. Translucent, glossy, and I'm going to put in front of that dark grey. And then you can use all different ways of creating dark grey. I'm just going to use my slider here and get down towards, say, there perhaps, and click on done. And you see the preview changes up here. And then I'm going to grab that material, this time from this library that I've created called dark grey, and I'm going to let it go. And you can see now the difference between the two greys. So that's a really efficient way of keeping your materials all of the same material, like the same settings if you like the same amount of texture or not texture, and then you can just edit their colors up here. So I'll just go through it again. The idea is you grab an existing material, let's say there's a red one here, let's say I want to make that into like an orange or something like that. I right click, duplicate, right click on the material I've just duplicated, click on edit, let's make that an orange, somewhere around there, click on done, and you'll see it then it's kind of, oh, it still says glossy red, I just need to edit that name as well, sorry. So let's just call that orange. And you can go as far as actually getting into all of the exact red, green and blue colors that Lego make all their products from. You can actually get it exactly right if you want to do that, or you can get it, roundabout in this mode. Also, if you want to see what it looks like in a rendered view, you can go to scene settings up here. You can choose one of the standard environment library settings. Grid light I think works quite well. Let that grid light go. Don't worry about decals at the moment or texture map, but if you click on this in canvas render, it'll then start to create a preview of what that render would actually look like, and you can see down the bottom it kind of gives you a readout about what that would look like. Now that's actually looking pretty ordinary at the moment, but once it got through to final, which will take a while, so I might need to play around a little bit with the lighting there. I don't think that's quite going to do what we want it to do. But anyway, that's the basics. If I want to go back to the design world, I click on the icon up here, go to design, and then you can see here it's actually picked up the materials, and you can see the difference here as well, which is kind of cool. All right, save that before we lose it, and continue on your merry way.